Hey there guys and girls, Matt here and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to take a little look into Jewelcrafting. In fact, we're going to do one better than that. We're going to take a deep dive into Jewelcrafting. We've taken a little bit of an overview of Jewelcrafting as it stands on the beta in the past. I'll give a link down below to the TLDR version of this video if you want to just watch a short quick look. But today we're going to dive in as much detail as we can do with Jewelcrafting so that you guys can make as much gold with it when we head into the Shadowlands. Let's get straight into it. Alrighty, so yes, like I said, there's going to be a link to the TLDR version of this video. If you just want to gain your first heads up of exactly how Jewelcrafting works, make sure you check that out. Hit the subscribe button while you're there, it's going to be in your best interest, I can assure you of that. If this video doesn't prove that, well, that's up to you. But firstly, let's look at the first topic of conversation, should we say, when it comes to Jewelcrafting, and it's of course the materials that you need for Jewelcrafting. It's very, very difficult to talk about Jewelcrafting without at least talking about mining in a small part. The fundamental of Jewelcrafting, and it's stayed the same going into Shadowlands, is that you take raw ore, you prospect that ore to gain gems from it, and in Shadowlands a few other little goodies as well, and you craft those gems into something that can be sold to players to stock in their gear. The fundamentals have stayed exactly the same, but what ore are we dealing with this time? There's actually 6 different variations of ore going into the Shadowlands, and I'll give a quick 30-second run through of each one of them. So your Leystrite ore is your basic bitch ore. It's available in all of the different zones, it's going to be readily available, and because of that, likely to be the cheapest of all of the ores available to you. The amount of this that will be flooding the auction house very early on in Shadowlands will be quite surprising to most. This is going to be one of your go-to ores. There's a rare version of that ore called Lithium ore. At least as it appears on the beta right now, it spawns in the same place as Leystrite ore. It's just a rare version of it. And if you hit the mining jackpot and find a rich lithium ore node, that can actually prospect for somewhere in the regions between sort of 15 to even 22. I've seen lithium ores in a single go. It's really like hitting the mining jackpot. It is going to be the more expensive ore though, but it's going to play a big part for Jewelcrafters. This is the one that we're going to look to prospect a lot, I would imagine, going forward. There is then 4 zone-specific ores. You have Phaedrum ore, you have Oxane ore, you have Solanum ore, and you have Sinvir ore. Each one of these is specifically found in one of the 4 main zones of Shadowlands and nowhere else. Which genuinely means that it's going to be less readily available than, say, Leystrite or even in some cases a lithium ore. If you're a miner, for example, you could spend an hour in each of the 4 zones doing some mining. You're only going to get 1 hour's worth of the zone-specific ores, whilst you're going to get 4 hours worth of Leystrite ore. Stands to reason, the zone-specific ore is going to be that little bit more expensive simply because of that. When you do some prospecting, interestingly, in Shadowlands, you only get three different gems this time instead of the 6 that we've been used to through most past expansions. We have a blue one, Umbriel, we have a red one, Angazite, and from a yellow one, we have Oroblas. These 3 gems in different combinations are going to allow you to create different gems. You'll see if we ever so quickly look to the side here, we'll go through all of the patterns in detail in a minute, but you can see, for example, a deadly jewel cluster, which is going to be your plus 16 critical strike gem, is actually made up of a combination of both red rare gems, and yellow rare gems, plus a little bit of a Leystrite setting. That's just a vendor item, not really need to be worrying about these too much. But so this time we actually combine different rare gems to make an end level gem as such, and so it's a slightly different system to BFA. Couple of other materials to note. Firstly is the essences. These prospect from the zone specific ores primarily, but are also available when you prospect Leystrite and Lithium. The reason for these 4 different essences are these are some of the crafting materials needed for your base legendary items, but we'll get to the base legendary items in a little bit of more detail later in this video. Now, the thing that makes Jewelcrafting fun is that there is always this air of mystery about exactly how much things cost. The fact that you have to buy ore, prospect ore, and then you get some amount of materials out of that. That sort of conversion, that prospecting process kind of creates this weird system where nobody really knows the exact value of everything. This, in some ways, for gold makers is a good thing. It means that we can sort of somewhat set the price, and it makes it much harder for somebody to come in and go, well, I know it's worth less than that. But what is really important for goblins out there and people trying to make gold with jewel crafting is knowing if they buy this much ore, what should they expect to get in terms of prospecting results. So what I've done over a small period of time is I've created a little bit of a Shadowlands cheat sheet. Link to this will be down in the description. If you use this cheat sheet for yourself, please, if nothing else, make sure you give this video a like, as it will help support the channel going forward. I try to offer all of my resources to you without any sort of paywalls in place. So what we'll see from this is that I've done a little bit of prospecting of ore on the beta. I've not got huge numbers to go by as of yet, simply because gaining access to the ore on the beta is a little bit more difficult, because for the most part I have to go out and mine it myself. But as you can see, lacerite ore, for example, I've prospected a whole bunch of lacerite and it shows you the results that I've had so far. Interestingly, lacerite does have the chance to give you chance to prospect all of the 4 main essences. Whereas if you then don't look down to some of the zone specific ore, solanum ore, oxane ore, phaedrum ore, for example, they only prospect into 1 of the different essences. This will all make more sense to you once we get to the base legendary items later in the video. But it's important to note that you can use these zone specific ores to somewhat target and focus the essence that you need. So when it comes to crafting the base legendary items, if you're missing some essences, you can go and know that, well, if I go and prospect this type of ore, then I will get that essence that I need for my crafting. There's not much more to say about materials, guys, as for jewel crafters. There is one more material called a shadowgast ingot, which is primarily made by blacksmiths. Alchemists also have the ability to craft them on a daily cooldown. It primarily comes from blacksmiths, but we'll touch on that later in the video. So let's get to the next section. Next, I suppose I should talk a little bit about the actual leveling process of jewel crafting. You'll see on the window here I've maxed it out on the beta so far. It's not too difficult to do. Things to note about the leveling process. You can actually get 25 of your first 25 skill points simply from prospecting ore. Doesn't matter which ore you prospect, although my recommendation would be lacerite ore, simply because it will be the cheapest. You can get your first 25 points just by prospecting lacerite ore. Of course, this is the default prospect. You take 5 ore, you prospect it, you get some gems. From very quickly on, you'll start to be able to make some of the basic gems, and that will then get you the ability to mass prospect ore. Although you can get a good amount of skill points from mass prospecting ore, I wouldn't recommend it. Simply because the mass prospecting of the zone specific ores, for example, is A, going to be very expensive, and B, you get so many skill points so quickly and easily from just creating some of the basic gems in the first place. It's going to be tempting to go into the mass prospecting and just get a whole bunch of free levels that way. But honestly, you'll be better off just crafting yourself a variety of the basic gems that you'll have access to at that point. The only thing I would mass prospect is lacerite, simply because its availability will be far more abundant than some of the other zone specific ores or even the Elithium ore. Regarding crafting though, you don't actually make much jewellery when it comes to actually levelling up jewel crafting. It's pretty simple. You get virtually all of the plans and the patterns from the trainer. A couple of things to note: there are a couple of patterns you don't get given access to through the levelling of jewel crafting. One is the revitalising jewel doublet. This requires Court of Harvesters Honoured to be able to pick it up, and there's also the Crafter's Mark II, which requires Revered with the Avowed. These are the only 2 things that are locked behind some sort of rep gain. Although, okay, there's one more, but we'll come to that later in the video. The Crafter's Mark, regardless of if you even go out and get this before you level up jewel crafting, is way too expensive for you to actually use to skill up your jewel crafting. The revitalising jewel doublet though is definitely something you're going to want to get your hands on at least at some point as jewel crafting, as this is going to be quite a valuable gem. This is going to be quite a hot seller. There's a tip for you going forward. make sure you at least get Court of Harvesters honoured. You should be able to do this even if you don't align yourself with the Venthyr in Revendreth. You'll still be able to gain this reputation pretty quickly and pretty easily. Just bang out a few world quests in the zone. Arguably, if you level once from just doing the leveling quests in Revendreth, there's a good chance you'll almost be honoured anyway. It's not too much of a concern. Okay, so we've talked about the materials, we've talked about how we level up jewel crafting. I guess the thing we should really start actually focusing on is what are we crafting? Now, let's take a look. So, let's start with the obvious one. Let's start with the gems. The gems is where we, the main thing, or the first thing that most people think of when they think of jewel crafting. You take your ore, you prospect it, you turn those gems into something that people can slot in their gear to give them a nice little stat boost. Pretty much the same thing as it stands in Shadowlands. I'll quickly go through each of them. I'll highlight each one for a few seconds on screen so you can see the amount of materials that are needed. Damn you, Blizzard, you're not letting enough people into the beta, so I hope this is going to be somewhat useful to you. But it works in a similar sort of way. We've got versatility stat, we got speed one, we'll come to that in a minute. You've got your haste, you've got your mastery, and you've got your crit. Your typical secondary stats all covered by the basic gems. You have duplets, and then the big boy ones, the rare versions of the gems that people can slot into their gear are called clusters. Two different categories. A couple of things to note with these is you have the straddling jewel duplet. This is an interesting one. This is something new to Shadowlands that we've not seen before. This one gives you an increase of 13 speed for every Shadowlands gem you have socketed in your gear. Now, things to note with jewel crafting, there are only 5 gear slots that can take a gem in Shadowlands. You have your ring, your neck, the helm, the braces, and the belt. So there's only 5 potential slots you can have. One of those I would highly recommend putting one of these straddling jewel duplets in, leaving you 4 to utilise for your secondary stat requirements, whatever they may be. That will then give you 5 times 13 amount of speed. Having extra speed is always valuable, regardless of what content you're doing. It means you can do your world quests faster. It means if you're doing some Mythic Plus, you can zoom around a bit faster. If you're doing a raid, it means you can get to the safe zone quicker. There's always going to be beneficial reasons to have at least one of these in your gear. So make sure you get a bunch of these crafted up and up on the auction houses. These will be a real hot seller. The other one is the Revitalizing Jewel Duplet, which we spoke about just a minute or two ago. This one is locked behind a rep grind and does something similar, but instead of giving you speed, it gives you 133 health every 10 seconds, and on the same premise for every Shadowlands gem you have socketed. So if you have one of these in your gear and 4 other Shadowlands gems, you could be getting yourselves a nice little constant damage, heal over time effect for your character that is always of benefit. So the gems are pretty straightforward. Both the duplets and also the clusters are actually considered crafting reagents in their own. So you're going to craft some of these, if not when you do the leveling of jewel crafting, you're going to craft these endgame in large quantities anyway. And the reason I say they're crafting reagents is because if you go down to the necklaces and the rings, you'll actually see very quickly that you start using those cut gems, I suppose, to make the jewellery itself. Another reason why I suggested during the leveling of jewel crafting not to mass prospect all of your ore is for this exact reason here. You can see when you craft the rings, when you craft the necklaces, for the first time, I don't think this was the case in BFA, correct me if I'm wrong, I've not played BFA for a while, you actually need the base raw ore to be able to craft some of the jewellery items. So let's take a quick look over the jewellery. We've got the Masterful Lace Stripe Choker. Interestingly to note, all of the necklaces and rings that jewel crafters make has a prismatic socket as default. This is going to be really important as we go into the first raid and the first tier of sort of proper content. The fact that you're going to be able to guarantee that these items have sockets on, that could be quite powerful, that could be a big thing. But you've got Masterful, obviously plus mastery stats, deadly, obviously plus critical, plus versatility, plus haste. It's simple stuff, we're used to this sort of stuff. And then there's the level 60 variations of them. Interestingly, they have an item level of 151 at level 60. This is where the smart ones of you out there will go somewhat out of your way to pick up the Crafter's Mark rank 2. If you make a few of these using some of those gems that you're going to be picking up, plus a whole bunch of vendor materials, you're going to be able to take those 151 item level rings and trinkets, rings and necklaces, and you're going to be able to boost those up to item level 168. It's going to be quite, this in total, when you do the maths on this, is quite costly. But simply the fact that people are going to want to get the best gear they possibly can for that first tier of content, it means there's a good likelihood that if somebody goes to the auction house looking for one of these rings or necklaces specifically, they're more likely to buy the one with a higher item level on it, even if you have to charge considerably more for it. So bear that in mind. Interestingly, on the level 60, both necklaces and rings, there is the option to specify a secondary stat on this. It's kind of weird that this is a thing, simply because this, as you will be aware of, uses the missives. Missives are something that comes from inscription. The issue I see for this, as it stands at the moment, is these missives are going to be remarkably expensive. It wouldn't surprise me if we see these missives being anywhere between 500 to 1,000 gold each. So simply to be able to specify, okay, I want this secondary stat on it, could make crafting these quite expensive and a very niche market, should we say. So just be cautious with actually adding secondary stats onto these. Well, what else have we got? What else are we going to be crafting as a jewel crafter? That's pretty much it, to be honest. You've got the gems, you've got the rings and the necklaces, which are all pretty straightforward. I suppose the last thing we should talk about is going to be the base legendary items. This is probably the one a lot of people are interested in specifically, so we'll spend a little bit of time just going over this in some more detail. Shadowghast necklaces and Shadowghast rings are the two base legendary items that jewel crafters are able to make in Shadowlands. This is where you'll see the use for the essences that we were talking about previously. You remember that you get each of the essence from a specific ore from prospecting. What I will just reiterate again, because I'm not sure how well I focused on it initially, is that you do still get the essences from prospecting Lacestrite, and you do definitely get the essences from prospecting Elithium. But the matter of the fact is that prospecting, especially Elithium, is going to get very, very expensive very quickly. So make sure that you know your numbers before you go into buying hundreds of thousands of gold worth of Elithium to prospect. It's going to get expensive quickly. But let's take a look at what it actually requires to create a single Shadowghast necklace. This is where you may notice there are some significant differences on the beta, as you see here, to what is shown to you on the live version of the game. If you open BFA right now, I know we're in pre-patch, if you look through Jewelcrafting, you'll probably see that it says that it requires 50 essences each to craft a single necklace. The numbers that are shown to you in the live version of the game right now are from a quite old version of the beta as it stands. This has been the most updated version, and this was updated along with a lot of changes to prospecting to give the profession some sort of balance. If you're a regular viewer of the channel, you know that I made it quite publicly aware that Jewelcrafting was broken for the longest time on beta. Since that video's been out, Blizzard have been back into the game and they've made some significant changes. So you're going to need two different types of essence for each base legendary. The necklace is going to use the essence of servitude, the essence of valor, whilst the rings are going to need the rebirth and the torment. The only materials they share is the Shadowghast ingots, which they start off needing 15 of each, and there's also the Arboreal Shard. The Arboreal Shard is quite simply a vendor item you pick up in Shadowlands. It's Blizzard's way of introducing a nice sort of a nice little gold sink into the game. All of that raw vendor gold that people have been farming en masse at the moment, this is going to be a way for Blizzard to exit some of that gold out the game. It's 1,000 gold each from the vendor for these Arboreal Shards, but the faction reputation bonus does apply to these. So you could potentially get these for as little as 800 gold a piece once you've got your faction sort of leveled up to Exalted. Now, how do you go about getting the base legendary items? Well, the first thing to note is, as a jewel crafter, to get access to the base legendary items, you do have to be level 60, simply because you require access to both the Maw and the Torghast to pick up the plans for these. You first have to get to Torghast and speak to the Rune Carver. The Rune Carver gives you a little bit of a quest line to go on, but then once you've completed that quest line, he will then send you back to your main profession trainer in Oribos, to where you'll then be able to pick up the plans for the Shadowghast necklace and rings. So one question I get asked a lot is, do I need to level up? Do I need to be level 60 for jewel crafting? For most of it, no, but for the base legendary items, yes. These do require you to be level 60 before you can craft them. Shadowghast Ingot. Shadowghast Ingot is a material that we didn't speak about earlier when we spoke about the materials. And this is because it's a bit of an oddball. Jewel crafting's in a weird situation where, regardless of how skilled you are as a jewel crafter, it's not self-sufficient. And by that I mean that these are primarily crafted by blacksmiths. A blacksmith can take one of each of the zone specific ores and turn that into 2 Shadowghast ingots. So what does that mean for us goblins? It means you're going to have to get very, very friendly with a blacksmith. Either one in your guild, a real life friend, or preferably even having an alt that has blacksmithing leveled up on it as well. Shadowghast Ingot does also require your blacksmithing to be maxed. So any old blacksmith can't create these. They're going to have to be skill 100 in blacksmithing before they can craft the Shadowghast ingots. So if you choose to have this on an alt, it's going to be quite difficult for you. That brings me to the point of saying that if you're going to be a jewel crafter in Shadowlands, it's highly advisable that that character is also a blacksmith, simply so that you can share those Shadowghast ingots between the 2 different professions, because of course blacksmiths need a lot of them. Jewel crafters are going to need a lot of them too for their base legendary items. This expansion going forward, jewel crafting and blacksmithing is a perfect combination to have on your character. A lot of people will usually advise you to take mining on a jewel crafter, and as much as that is sensible so that you can pick up the ore that you need, you're then still going to be in a situation where you're going to need Shadowghast ingots from either an alt, the auction house, or another character directly. So jewel crafting and blacksmithing together is a match made in heaven, should we say. But yes, when it comes to crafting the Shadowghast or the base legendary items, there are 4 different ranks of base legendary item that are going to be implemented at the start of Shadowlands. You'll see this little experience bar. Every time you craft one of these, this experience bar will go up. You can see that crafting a rank 1 will give you 1 experience. So quick maths tells you that you're going to need to craft 10 rank 1 base legendary items. That will then unlock the ability to create a rank 2 version. The rank 2 will have a higher item level, but it will also require a higher amount of materials. This is where you should go back to the Shadowlands cheat sheet that I gave you earlier. If we take a look at the cheat sheet ever so quickly, you can see if you go to the sheet for either the ring or the legendary neck, you will see the crafting costs and the material prices for creating rank 1s, rank 2s, rank 3s and rank 4s. This is all available to you. So all you have to do is throw in the price that either you're willing to pay for your Shadowghast ingots and the value you assign to your essences. You can make this, you can either put your auction house values for this, or if you go through the route of prospecting your own ore, you'll have your own figure that you can use for these essences. Bung them in the yellow boxes here. The spreadsheet will do the rest for working out what they're going to cost for you, how much you're going to spend, what you then need to sell them for to sort of recuperate your gold and so on. So my ballpark guesstimate is that it's going to cost somewhere in the region of 300,000 gold to get your jewel crafting neck to rank 4, and you presumably going to have to repeat that cost again if you want to double it up and have both the ring and the necklace skilled up to rank 4. You're going to have to be quite a serious jewel crafter to invest in that. So good luck for it, but there's going to be a lot of gold in it. Interestingly, jewel crafting is actually going to be one of the main professions I'm going to have on my main as we go into Shadowlands. So if you plan to do this, make sure you are subscribed, as there's no doubt that as soon as we get Shadowlands, I'll be going through this in a little bit more detail again as well. So we talked about the things we're going to craft. We've talked about, I'm just referring to my notes quickly. We've talked about all of the gems. We've talked about the necks and rings. We've talked about the Legos. Okay, let's talk a little bit for a few minutes about like the actual process of selling this sort of stuff. Jewel crafting is going to be in a very weird situation for the first couple of weeks of Shadowlands launch, simply because it's jewel crafters themselves will be incentivized to get the base legendary items as quick as they can. They're going to want to be able to be crafting rank 1s really quickly if they can. They're also going to want to boost this experience bar. They're going to want to unlock rank 2, they're going to want to unlock rank 3, and eventually they're going to want to unlock rank 4 base legendary items. To do that, they're going to need a lot of essences. To get a lot of essences, it means they're going to do a lot of prospecting. The outcome of this is going to be that you may find for the first couple of weeks of Shadowlands, before the main raid comes out, that there is a flood of gems to the market. You could look at this in two ways. You could either look at this as a great, well, one way realistically. This is a great opportunity within the first couple of weeks of Shadowlands to either save the materials that you've gained from prospecting, wait till the first tier of raid comes out, that's when the real spike in demand is going to be, or if every other jewel crafter on your server panics and starts to craft all of these gems, dump them on the auction house when people aren't necessarily buying them all up in great quantities yet, that's going to be a really good opportunity for you to dive in and buy some of those gems as they just plummet in price over the first couple of weeks, so that you've got a nice stockpile ready for when things explode when the first raid comes out. That is my hot tip for jewel crafting. The raw gems that people get through prospecting are almost going to be seen as just an added bonus. People are going to be hunting down these essences to be able to craft the base legendary items. That's their main reason for prospecting in the first couple of weeks. These are just an added bonus. If they could sell them on the auction house for 1 gold, it's better than not selling them on the auction house at all, as far as some people will consider. Just be aware of that going into the first tier, the first sort of 4 weeks or so of Shadowlands. What I have also done is I've put together a TSM. In fact, it's probably easier if I show you it here. A TSM group for jewel crafting. It's real simple, real basic. I've not included any operations with this. I've simply just made sure that all of the base legendary items are here. When I say all, only the rank 1s are implemented here right now. As you level up in your profession, you can add rank 2 once you unlock them to these groups. All of the gems are here, subcategorized by the clusters and the doublets. I've put the necklaces you can craft and the rings. Everything's all in these groups. I will put this in a paste bin, and I will also link this in the description down below. So if you want to get your, you can import this to your own profile. It's got all of the materials, all of the craftable items there already for you, so you're ready to go. Okay, so final thoughts and extras, I suppose, is the last thing I wanted to talk about. I've spoken a little bit of detail about the simple things such as pairing it up with either mining or blacksmithing. That's going to be super valuable to you. My recommendation, of course, would be blacksmithing, because you're going to need a lot of those shadow gas ingots. Ultimately, you're probably never going to be able to mine up enough ore to facilitate exactly how much of it that you want for prospecting, not unless you have a lot of free time available. So blacksmithing would be my recommendation in terms of pairing. Classes to put jewel crafting on, it really doesn't matter, whatever class you want it to be. There's not so many strict requirements for it to be level 60 apart from the base legendary items, so jewel crafting is still perfectly viable on an alt. That's kind of up to you. And then just the reputation that is needed for a couple of them. I suppose the fact that you have to be honoured with Court of Harvesters means that if you really want to min-max, the reason you've got to be honoured with the Court of Harvesters is for the Revitalising Jewel doublet. If you really want to min-max, then I suppose going Venthyr would be valuable, because that will keep you in Revendreth and mean that you get honoured reputation with them at an increased speed. but arguably there's no real sort of requirement to be within any one covenant to really take full advantage of jewel crafting. So then, guys and girls, I think that's it. I think that's my deep dive into jewel crafting. I appreciate this has been a little bit more of a lengthier video than you're used to on my channel, but I hope it's been valuable to you. There's a whole bunch of links down in the description, so if you've made it to this point in the video, firstly, thank you very much. You've put up with me talking for what appears to be almost half an hour now. Please give the video a like if it's been useful to you. Subscribe if you're new around here. And guys, I'll see you next time. Peace.